you so much for those of you who stayed from the last lecture. Yeah, how's everyone feeling?
Sexy.
Sexy? Are you feeling sexy?
Yes.
Those two people in the back, are you feeling sexy?
Feeling sexist?
Yeah. Sexy, not sexist.
Sexy.
Sexy.
Yes.
Sexy. Is that your version of sexy? Amazing. Amazing.
We are women, so we are sexy.
Amazing, right?
It's a good.
Yeah.
What are USPs?
USPs. I'll come on to that.
Your weaknesses could be your USP.
So, yeah, exactly. You see, you did this, right? That's your version of sexy. It's because we're all so different, aren't we? Right? Every single one of us is uniquely different. No two people are the same. And I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. Is that okay?
Yes.
Is that all right?
Yes.
And I'm going to step out of the box. So, raise your hand. Raise your hand if you've ever been labelled. Ever been labelled? Ever? Yeah? Raise your hand if these labels have ever had negative connotations. Yeah? Raise your hand if any of these messages have they've started to sink in, right? They've started to sink in, and they've started to permeate, right? And you've started to believe them. It's my belief, it is my belief, that labelling is just a way of society controlling people who are different. Are you okay? Do you want me to help you with anything? Because you're talking, I'm just wondering if I can help you with anything.
Me?
Yeah.
I'm translating.
Translating.
Yes.
Right. See, that really helps me because I just think you're talking and then it's a bit off-putting, but now I know. See, the power of connection, the power of communication. Perfect. Excellent. Love it. Okay. So, yeah. I was talking about being different than labels. And I am not somebody who is politically correct. Any of my friends that will tell me I'm not politically correct. But I really believe, I'm not going to bang on about labelling, right? But I truly, truly believe that labelling is a way of society trying to control people who are different, right? But if we're all different, is labelling really justified? What are we going to do? What are we going to go around doing? Labelling every single individual person? We'll run out of labels. We'll run out of words, right? I truly believe that not only are your so-called weaknesses your USP, I truly believe if we have the courage to look beyond the label, to look beyond the weakness, that's actually the clue to your superpowers. It's actually the clue to your superpowers. My name is Helen Chapman, and I am the founder of Rebel Love Journey. And as of this weekend, I am an international speaker. And I'm a transformational coach. And I work with highly creative, successful women discover and live their purpose by uncovering their unusual brilliance. I love what I do. I absolutely love what I do. holding space for people to step into their brilliance, people to unlock these negative connotations that have been manifested, that they've started to believe for years and years and years, to break free. But it wasn't always like this. It wasn't always like this. When I was at school, no one got me. No one got me. I always felt different. Always felt different. And I learned differently. I just didn't learn like other people. And because I didn't learn like other people, they put me in remedial group. And then what are the messages that I'm going to get? Right? I'm not good enough. I'm not clever enough. I'm not as clever as that person. It hurts. And when you get those messages throughout your life, you start to believe it, right? These messages, these stereotypes, self-fulfilling prophecy, right? When they actually cottoned on that I have dyslexia, when I've got dyspraxia, and when I've got ADD, that wasn't a relief. That label wasn't a relief. That was further confirmation I was different. And then I was allowed to go to these different, I had to go out to have separate classes. Why would I want to go outside of the normal class to go into a different class? It's going to make me feel even more different, even more special, right? And I was doing a bit of research, and I was looking on the internet, and dyslexia it's seen as a disability. It's a disability. According to who? Right? You think about any of these labels that you have, right? Just think about it now. Any of these labels and the negative connotations. According to who? I'd love it. I would absolutely love it to be in a world where this so-called dyslexia, right, or this so-called dyspraxia, or highly sensitive, right? I'm a highly sensitive person. For them to say, oh my God, you've got dyslexia, you've got the traits of whatever dyslexia is. That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. That means that you are highly creative. Highly creative. You think outside the box all the time. You have 1 in 3 chances of becoming a really successful business entrepreneur. Imagine that. Instead, I got, well, you've got learning difficulties, you can't read as fast as other people, you can't process information, your working memory is shit. Right? All the stuff that I couldn't do. With highly sensitive people, right? Oh, you're too sensitive. Has anyone been told that? I'm highly sensitive. Too sensitive, right? Imagine a world where highly sensitive people, it was seen as a superpower. You're highly sensitive. Wow, that means you have a really, really rich inner landscape. That means you can feel other people's feelings so deeply. It can be seen as a superpower to help others. So I work with highly creative women discover and live their purpose through unlocking their brilliance and their unusualness. And if you want to not only discover how your weaknesses could be your USP, but how you can have the courage to unlock and go beyond the labelling and see beyond the labelling, how your brilliance can be your superpowers. I'd love to share these 4 steps. Would that be okay?
Yes.
The first one is breaking free. Breaking free of all these stereotypes, all these negative connotations, right? So I use my dyslexia. I used the fact that I thought I wasn't good enough or not clever enough just because I didn't fit a particular mould. And I started to believe it, you know? I started to believe these old stories. But by bringing these relationship, this part of me that's stuck in the old story, with the part of me that actually knows how unbelievably brilliant I am, and how my unusualness is actually my superpower, by bringing these 2 into relationship with each other, that's when stuff transforms. The second thing, once you unlock these once you bring into relationship the part of you that's stuck in the old story with the wise part of you, what you actually uncover is the deeper truth. The deeper truth of who you are. Your superpowers. The second thing is about reconnecting. Reconnecting to the universe, plugging in. For years I spent my life just feeling so isolated, so alone, feeling like I had to work everything out myself. Plugging into this collective field, this greater intelligence that knows how capable I am, how brilliant I am. Also reconnecting to others. You know, I spent so long thinking that it wasn't safe to reach out to other people. Again, being locked in this old story, right? That it's not safe. It's not safe to reach out to other people and ask for help. So again, unlocking this part of you that's stuck in this old story. And once you do that, and once you start breaking free of these core beliefs, you start to attract these people that not only mirror and match your vision, but they start to see your blind spots. They start to see things that you can't see and how capable you are that you couldn't even see. And then there's this beautiful dance that happens between you, and the expansion is infinite. Because I truly believe that our abilities and our capacities, if nurtured in the right way, are limitless. Truly limitless. Third thing is about self-expression, right? So once you started breaking free from these core beliefs, and you started plugging back into the universe, this collective field, and you start trusting other people. It's all about trust. I spent so much of my life not trusting, thinking I had to figure everything out myself. Then you start to express, these expressions start to come through you. And this unusualness which makes you you, right? You can't help but start expressing it in the clothes that you wear, in the way that you walk, in the food that you eat, in the documentaries that you watch, right? And the fourth thing is about living it. So we as women, we have never had more power than we have now. We've never had more influence than we've had now. So it's not a question of how can I get more power, but it's a question of how can I use the power that I have. And people who are different, put your hand up if anyone feels different. Yeah? People who feel different, because that's a label, right? We're born leaders. We're born leaders. We're born to stand out. And that's what makes us brilliant. That's what makes us brilliant. So if you want to turn your weaknesses into your USP and actually go even further and go beyond the label and uncover your superpowers, I am offering a 1-hour discovery session where I go really, really deep and we uncover. You set out your vision, you start deeply visioning your future as well as what's holding you back. And we do go pretty deep, so it's just a taster, but it's something that I really want to offer because I truly believe everyone in this room is a leader. And if I want to make the most impact that I can on this planet in the time that I have. So it's my offer to you. So if you're interested and if you feel there's some kind of connection and you want to unlock your superpowers and what makes you different, then celebrate that. You come and see me. I've got a form, my colleagues are here, and write your email and then I'll fill up. I'll send an application form and we'll go from there.
What is USP?
USP, unique selling point. Yeah. It's quite a marketing term, actually.
Unique superpowers.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Yeah. Exactly. Cool. Thank you very much.
Hello everyone, if it's okay I'd like to stand here as well, it's much easier. Thank you for the opportunity to talk with you this afternoon and for still being here after so many days at the WEF. I'd like to talk with you about your weakness as your USP from a little bit more of a marketing perspective, but it's amazing the similarities that it has with what Helen has just shared with you as well. My background is as a consultant and an author and a coach. I'm from Australia and I work mostly with women and mostly with not-for-profit organisations. But today I want to talk with you about the focus of my work, which is around grief and loss. So I work with people who are dealing with some kind of loss in their life, and I work with them as a coach and also in providing training and other resources for them. So I want to talk a little bit about USP to start with, so that you are, it sounds like we need to clarify. So USP is your unique selling position. So it's about what makes you different in terms of what you sell in your business. How is that different from what other people sell? So there are many washing machines on the market. There are many iPhones or other types of smartphones on the market. So many products that are exactly the same. What makes each of them unique? What makes you decide to buy this one instead of that one? Why do you buy this washing machine instead of that washing machine? And often that's not about the actual washing machine itself, it's about something quite different, something quite unique about that product. And I can give you an example. We can think of some examples. So if we think of a Gucci handbag, it's a handbag. There are hundreds of thousands of handbags that you can buy in the world. Why would you buy, if you had the money, why would you buy a Gucci handbag? Why?
Because of the name.
Prestige, name. Mm-hmm. So you're buying that handbag because of the prestige, not because it's a handbag, because of what it offers. Why do we buy from McDonald's?
Yo.
I'm asking the wrong audience. Why do other people buy from McDonald's? What does McDonald's sell?
Fast food.
Convenience, fast.
Loving it.
You love it. Yes. Inconsistent. Anywhere in the world, it will be almost the same. Why do people go to Disneyland? There are many, many theme parks in the world. Why is Disneyland the one that they might choose?
Magic.
Pardon?
Magic.
Magic. Magic, yes. Yes. Yes, it's about happiness. It's about creating that feeling amongst a family of that happiness, of that magic. Yeah, that's a great word for it. I can tell you about another example, which is a product, they're stockings. Do you know stockings?
Yeah.
Leggings, yep, hosiery. So traditionally, stockings were only sold in department stores, and they were very expensive. They were like an exclusive item. But there was a company called Hanes Legs, and they decided that women wear stockings every day. It should become an everyday item. So because they saw there a different USP, they decided to change the whole way that stockings were sold. So they decided stockings should be sold in a supermarket, and they should be available to every woman, which meant that and because they're in a supermarket, stockings were much cheaper. And because of the name of the product, Hanes Legs, it has the word egg in the middle, they packaged the stockings in an egg, in a container that looked like an egg, which fit with being in a supermarket. So this is what we mean by unique selling position. When you know what makes your product different, and you design everything about your product so that it fits that USP. Okay. So I would like to share with you now a story about how I discovered that my weakness became my USP. We know what USP is, but now what about when your weakness is actually your USP? And my story is a quite personal story, and it starts off quite sad, but I know I'm in a safe place to share it, and I hope that it's okay for you to hear it as well. In 2003, my husband and I found out we'd been married for 11 years, and we found out that we couldn't have children. So we decided that we would travel the world. All our money was our own, so we might as well go and travel the world. So the first country that we went to was Poland. Because we're Australian, we're from North Australia, we wanted to see snow. We wanted to have a white Christmas. That was our basis for choosing Poland. So, and we had been in Poland for 5 months. We were teaching English there, and one evening my husband was walking home. It was the first time that he had come home by himself. We had always been together. This night he was walking home by himself, and he was walking on across a pedestrian crossing, and he was hit by a car. And the next day my husband died in a hospital in Poland. And so as you can imagine, everything about my world after that minute had to change. My whole life was turned upside down. There was only my husband and I came back to Australia, and I honestly didn't think I could cope. I was used to controlling everything in my world and in my husband's world, and now I didn't know how to deal with anything. There was lots of grief, obviously, but there was also lots of loss. I lost my best friend, I lost the country that I lived in, I lost my job, I didn't have a car, I didn't have a house, I didn't have anything. So the stress was incredible, and I honestly believed that I would never be happy again. I would learn to survive somehow, but I didn't really think it was ever possible to be happy or to have anything meaningful anymore. So I actually decided that I would be a cat lady. Do people know what a cat lady is? In Australia we talk about cat ladies, which means that you give up on life, you go and live in a dingy old house, and you have long hair, and your house is a mess, and you have 15 cats. So I was going to become one of these recluses, and I had even chosen the house that I was going to end up living in, I thought. But eventually I got curious about grief and loss. I wanted to understand what was happening to me. So, and Helen, you talked about labels, and the label I had on me was widow. And, widow didn't fit a 36-year-old woman. I was 36 at the time, and I couldn't understand. people also didn't understand this label and didn't understand how to interact with me. So I started to do some research. I did a master's at university, and I started talking with lots of other women. And I told these other women that I needed to interview them, but really I was just trying to find out, do you feel crazy as well? You know, I feel like I'm going crazy. I want to understand what's happening for you. And what I discovered was there were so many things that were the same for all of these other women. They were going through the same kinds of things. They were really struggling. There was lots that they didn't understand. They were trying to find a way out of this. They were trying to understand how, if possible, they could rebuild their lives. And it was at that point that I understand that all of the things about my life at that point that I didn't like, they were the things that I needed to be able to share. So I saw vulnerability as a weakness. As you said before, I didn't want to ask for help. I didn't even know how to ask for help. But I understood that that's what I needed to be able to do, and I needed to be able to share that. I was used to controlling everything, and now I couldn't. And I thought I should hide that. I thought that was weakness. But I understood that was actually what I needed to share. I needed to tell other women, it's okay if you can't control everything or anything. It's okay if you don't know how to ask for help. It's okay if you feel like you can't cope. So I had to start being able to share all of those weaknesses. So I started to talk about those things with other women, and I ended up writing a book about how to deal with grief. And what I found, I wrote this book from the perspective of a young widow. So the book is written for other young women. But what I actually found was I wasn't selling a book. I was selling hope. I was selling a space where you could feel safe, where other women could feel that they're trusted and that they can share all of the things that they're scared of, and it will be okay. So then I was approached by men. I was approached by a woman who had given a child up for adoption. I was approached by another woman who was divorced, because it was the same thing. They were looking for hope. So I came to understand that my USP is about that. That's what I'm sharing. So then I designed all of the work that I do around that. That meant that I produced a book, but I also the book is also available as an ebook, because I know that the time that women are struggling is 2 o'clock in the morning when there's no one to talk to. So the book has to be available online. I provide coaching for women, and I know that it can be difficult for them to talk about their grief, so I meet them in their home. So my whole business has to be designed around what works for the women that I'm talking with, and that I'm selling that message of hope to them. So my call to action to you today is to be aware of your own weakness. What are those weaknesses? What are the things that you're trying to hide that you think are your weaknesses? Because the reality is that more than likely there are other people with the same weaknesses, and they want to know, how have you dealt with them? How do you get through those? Those things are the same for me. And can you share them with me so that I can understand how to do that? And in actual fact, your USP then becomes something that can create something magical for you as well. Thank you. I only have 2 copies of the book, but if you would like one, please let me know. I've only got 2, sorry. Give me your name, I'll send you one.
Okay.
Does anyone have any questions?
How do we recognize our weaknesses?
Pardon?
How do we recognize our weaknesses? How do we get to know what is making us weak?
For me, that was fairly easy. They were fairly
It's not
obvious.
easy for me, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, it's not easy for you?
No, it's not easy for me. Something is pulling me back, but I don't know what.
So you're hiding them.
Maybe
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah.
I want to know, how do you recognize your weaknesses?
I think if you're hiding them, then you're seeing them as something bad. And so and you know we're saying that your weaknesses are your USP. Your weaknesses are not bad. Your weaknesses are just one aspect of you. So when you allow them just to be, then they can be acknowledged. Then they can come to the surface. But if you're thinking they're bad, then you're pushing them down, you're hiding them. One day they'll come out, like in the supermarket or at the bank, or a time when you don't want them to come out. So it is about acknowledging them and let them come to the surface and be okay. Say hello.
Can be fears that
Yeah.
for example, fears that you have.
But I sometimes feel that I am myself a weakness for myself. I pull me down. The other people help me to grow, but I pull myself down. That I cannot.
I think what Deb was saying was this. If we think, I really want to just completely explode the whole concept of weakness, right? I mean, it's weakness within inverted commas for a reason, right? If we believe that it's a weakness, then we're going to carry on in that old story, aren't we? And it's this sense of actually, it's this awareness that we have. First of all, in order to transmute something, we have to create an awareness that it's actually this is something that this is a behaviour that I have, but it's not actually me.
Yeah.
It's not actually me. It's something that I've adopted perhaps when I was tiny, which I've carried on, and we can, it creates many manifestations and transmutations as you go throughout life, right? But it's not actually me, so it's creating that awareness, creating that separation between what you think is you and the real you, right?
Yes. Definitely.
It's a story, it's an old story that you're in. You see, it's kind of, so life doesn't happen to you, it happens through you, right? So when you're in that old story, you're vibrating, you're resonating, you're vibrating at a certain frequency, so you'll attract events which will actually verify this false belief, right? This so-called weakness.
Yes. That's
Yeah, but when you actually see it as something that is your behaviour as opposed to actually being you, that's the first step.
Thank you so much.
So I was just going to sort of elaborate a bit more on what Helen just said. Often you're unaware what your weakness is, but you just know things don't feel right. So one of the best things you can do for yourself is look at yourself and think, why do I even believe it's a weakness?
Yeah.
So it's just a perception. And that perception you will find, as Helen said, will be
I have
ingrained
myself
in you in
that
childhood.
perception actually.
Exactly.
I know that.
So once you get to know yourself and know how important you are,
Yeah.
then your weaknesses do become your strengths. Like they're a gift. You just don't see them as a gift. That's what I believe.
It's really helpful as well to get a coach to show you your blind spots. So, obviously, you're both coaches, so they can show you what your blind spots are. So we don't know what we don't know.
Anyone else got any more questions?